Britain is tightening the criteria for British national overseas residents applying for permanent settlement. And 2 men are charged with manslaughter over fatal scaffolding collapse at a high-tech construction site. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The UK government is tightening the criteria for British national overseas residents applying for permanent settlement, introducing minimum income requirements and higher English standards. The core 5+1 BNO pathway, however, will remain unchanged. Here's the latest policy. The UK's Home Office on Thursday released a consultation paper confirming that despite sweeping immigration reforms across the system, the UK will honour its commitment to Hong Kongers. This means BNO holders may still apply for indefinite leave to remain, or ILR, after 5 years of lawful residence, and for citizenship after a further year. Although the 5-year residency rule is here to stay, BNO applicants must now meet the same elevated eligibility thresholds as other migrants. The consultation outlines 5 requirements. Applicants will need to reach B2 proficiency instead of just B1 level, comparable to A-level standard English. Applicants must show an annual income of at least £12,570 within the past 3 to 5 years. That's about 128,000 Hong Kong dollars. Currently, BNO migrants face no income threshold, making this a major shift that brings them in line with all other ILR applicants. Another highlight of the reforms is a flexible residency model. Those earning £125,140 or above, global talent visa holders or those with C1 English may qualify for ILR in as little as 3 years. Those receiving public benefits or with past immigration breaches may see their required residency extended to 15 to 30 years. The Home Office specifies that BNO migrants and spouses or dependents of British citizens will not be affected by these residence extensions. The consultation runs for 12 weeks and could be implemented as soon as April next year. Introduced in 2021, the BNO visa has already issued more than 154,000 entry permissions in its first 2 years. So what does it mean to pass the B2 English exam? Here's what B2 exam looks like. In its writing paper, 2 tasks will have to be completed in 1 hour 20 minutes, each 140 to 190 words. Reading and use of English encompass 7 parts, which test sentence rewriting, fill-in-the-blanks, and comprehension.
B2 DSE 應該就大概
Education consultant Cheney says B2 level is roughly equivalent to level 4 in HKDSE, and many Form 3 to 4 Hong Kong students entering UK schools already reach B2 or even C1. But older BNO applicants may find it more demanding. Back locally, 2 men have been charged with manslaughter over last year's fatal scaffolding collapse at a high-tech construction site that killed 2 female workers. Timothy Lee reports.
The defendants, a 48-year-old site foreman and a 58-year-old scaffolder, were brought to the Kwun Tong Magistrates Court on Friday morning for their first court appearance. The case was adjourned until February 27th next year, with the pair being granted bail at $300,000 each. The duo were said to be involved in the fatal incident in which massive bamboo scaffolding crashed 19 stories from a luxury residential project in Kai Tak on February 20th last year. Apart from the 2 victims, 3 others were injured. The 2 suspects were arrested on Thursday in Ngau Tau Kok and Chung Kwan O. There had been previous cases of industrial incidents leading to manslaughter charges. In 2023, 2 workers died from gas poisoning while working underground at the Elements Mall. In 2022, a tower crane collapsed at a housing site on Anderson Road, killing 3 workers. The project manager on duty was charged with manslaughter. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
CK Hutchison Holdings is reportedly considering a dual listing for its health and beauty retailer A.S. Watson Group in Hong Kong and the UK. Wall Street Journal cited sources saying that Watson has begun laying the groundwork for initial public offerings in both Hong Kong and the UK, in a move that could raise up to $2 billion or 15.6 billion Hong Kong dollars. It aims to activate the IPO process in the early half of next year. Being the world's biggest healthcare and beauty retailer, Watson was founded more than 180 years ago in Guangzhou and operates 17,000 online and offline shops. Singaporean sovereign fund Temasek owns around 25% of Watson. The CK Hutchison spokesperson says it is not responding to market rumors. U.S. President Donald Trump's plan for ending the war in Ukraine would cede land to Russia and limit the size of Kyiv's military, according to a draft obtained by the Associated Press. The proposal is a result of talks between Washington and Moscow appearing to favor Russia. Russia has captured about 1/5 of Ukraine territory in the east, which Kyiv said it would never give up. Nastia Karim has more.
The memorial for fallen Ukrainian soldiers in Kyiv expands by the day, amid talk of a US-backed peace plan that appears to repeat previous proposals, heavy concessions to Russia. Reports have emerged that the US and Russia have agreed to a plan that could be the foundation of peace negotiations. But weary Ukrainians are skeptical given past disappointments. Denis Pasteur, a Ukrainian military chaplain, says agreeing to Russian conditions is almost like a surrender. For what did so many of our guys die for, he said, adding, if we give them land today, tomorrow they will demand more. Kyiv resident Ivan Trefiek is upset that others are making peace plans without Ukrainian input. They are absolutely unpleasant to us, he says. Some reports say Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is willing to hold talks based on the latest proposal. He met Daniel Driscoll, the US Secretary of the Army, where he pointed out that Russian weapons fired at Ukraine contain some components that can be traced back to the US.
That if it's possible to look at these, because I think that president has influence in it, and if they will not sell some details, Russia wouldn't be able, to produce missiles. So if it's possible, just to give. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really important.
However, even if Zelensky is willing to talk, Ukraine's representative at the United Nations said Kyiv is firmly against giving up territory to Russia.
While Ukraine stands ready to engage in meaningful negotiations to end this war, including at the leaders' level, our red lines are clear and unwavering. There will never be any recognition, formal or otherwise, of Ukrainian territory temporarily occupied by the Russian Federation as Russian. Our land is not for sale.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said while Moscow and Washington are in contact, no consultations per se are currently underway.
And still ahead, former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral is held and Donald Trump is not invited. Fire at venue of COP30 meeting in Brazil. And Foreign Minister Wang Yi continued his Central Asia tour with visit to Uzbekistan. Welcome back. Washington National Cathedral hosted a bipartisan show of respect and remembrance for former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney, who in his later years became an ardent critic of U.S. President Donald Trump. Daniel Rao tells us more.
US President Donald Trump, who had been publicly silent about Cheney's death on November 3rd, was not invited to the memorial service. Two former US presidents came, Republican George W. Bush, who chose Cheney as his vice president, and Democrat Joe Biden. Cheney's eldest daughter Liz was also among those paying tribute to the prominent US political figure.
I wish more Americans got to know Dick Cheney the way the folks in Casper, Cody, and Laramie got to know him. Smart and polished, without airs. Courteous and approachable, seeing everyone as an equal, a gentleman by nature, and a true man of the West. Dick was funny and easygoing in a style that his public image never caught up with. Though we can all agree he wasn't your standard issue politician. If any voters came hoping for a kind word and a hug, they'd have to settle for the kind word.
My dad's devotion to America was deep and substantive. He spent his life studying the history of our great republic. He knew you couldn't truly appreciate what it means to live in freedom if you didn't understand the sacrifices of the generations who came before.
The deeply conservative Cheney's influence in the Bush administration was legendary and to his critics tragic. He advocated for the US invasion of Iraq on the basis of what proved to be faulty intelligence. Bush credited him with helping to keep the country safe and stable in a perilous time. His relationship with US President Trump was difficult. Last year, it did not sit well with Trump when Cheney said he would vote for the Democrat Kamala Harris in the U.S. presidential election. Trump told Arab and Muslim voters Cheney killed more Arabs than any human being on earth. Dan Raul, TV News.
A fire briefly spread through pavilions being used for the COP30 United Nations climate talks in Belém, Brazil. Delegates were forced to be evacuated and 13 people were treated for smoke inhalation and no one was injured. Organizers said the fire was under control. Firefighters and security teams responded promptly and continue to monitor the site. Brazil's tourism minister Celso Sabino said the fire started near the China Pavilion, which was among several pavilions set up for events on the sidelines of the climate talks. Much of the summit venue in Belém was still under construction right up until the conference opened. South Africa is set to host a Group of 20 summit this weekend in an event overshadowed by the boycott of U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration. The U.S. denied a claim by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa that Washington changed its stance on the G20 and will attend. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Johannesburg on Friday morning ahead of the Group of 20 summit. Starmer was greeted by South African officials before receiving an energetic welcome from a dance troupe at the airport. Trump has denounced South Africa's leadership of the G20 and said he would not attend, citing alleged discrimination of South Africa's white farmers. Ramaphosa has said he's told Trump that information about the alleged persecution of Afrikaners is completely false. Foreign Minister Wang Yi continued his Central Asia tour, with Uzbekistan being his second stop. His visit to cultural landmarks also offered a rare glimpse of the top Chinese diplomat's more relaxed side. Arriving in Tashkent on Thursday evening, Wang was greeted by projections of the Chinese and Uzbek flags lighting up the capital's skyscrapers. Wang's first stop was accompanied by Uzbek Foreign Minister Baksior Saidov at the country's new landmark, the Center of Islamic Civilization, a sprawling complex introducing the heritage of Islam and relics reflecting Uzbekistan's millennia-old history, showing their East meets West culture. Wang Yi and the director of the center revisited the history of the ancient Silk Road. Wang asked if Zhang Qian, the famous Han Dynasty envoy and explorer, had passed through what is now Uzbekistan. The director said Zhang visited Fergana, an eastern city in Uzbekistan, and fostered a trade of grapes and cotton. The center also houses thousands of artifacts, including ancient garments and porcelain, as well as relics connecting to Chinese civilization. Another wing documents Uzbekistan's modern development. They include Uzbekistan and China's founding roles in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Saidov pointed out the deepening economic ties between the two countries, as carmaker BYD has only 2 overseas factories in Hungary and Uzbekistan, with the Uzbek factory being the bigger one thanks to the foreign minister's efforts. The center also showcased the world's oldest manuscript of the Quran and presented Wang with a commemorative book. Wang was also treated to an outdoor light display showing the country's culture. The Immigration Department has arrested 24 illegal workers, including 13 overstaying domestic helpers, mostly being Indonesian nationals. Acting on tip-offs, the Immigration Department raided 27 locations across Hong Kong over 3 days starting Tuesday, including restaurants and food manufacturing plants, arresting 34 people, including 8 employers. The foreign domestic helpers who have overstayed their visas were engaged in tasks such as dishwashing. Some have been working illegally for nearly a year, earning $300 to $500 per day, which is much higher than the current monthly salary of about $5,000 for foreign domestic helpers. The Hong Kong Tourism Board will hold the WinterFest between next Friday and the 4th of January next year, during which light shows will be organized across Central every night. Participation in the gala has reached record levels. From Santa Claus to soaring angels, the WinterFest will feature light displays on structures such as the Hong Kong City Hall, Bank of China Tower, as well as a quarter-final appeal. The light show will be paired with festive Christmas music, with at least 8 landmark buildings participating in the event. This as the gala starts at 7:30 p.m. every night, beginning next Friday, lasting around 30 minutes each time. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.